So even that includes also the protection programs also target children who are vulnerable in these abuses, such conflict with law and in armed conflict. So what UNICEF is taking into account this frame is working very hard in order to provide assistance to governments, make advocacy in the national and regional level in order to lead to the politicians that are taking the responsibility to make the rules, to put in the legislation all the issues concerning child protection issues. So I think it's very important to underline that the work of UNICEF is in a good shape, I can tell you. There is a goodwill of all the international community, and those things you can see in the contributions that are doing by donors in order to execute programs, projects in most countries, particularly in Latin America, Asia, and Africa.
Yes, but you say lack of education. Mm-hmm. Lack of education requires money.
Yeah.
Developing countries don't have money. So just saying lack of education is talking about the moon. How do you get the money for education? And then you say that UNICEF is working child marriages or in female genital mutilation, women in conflict, children in conflict. More and more children are dying in conflict. And so UNICEF is not succeeding, because if you look at the statistics, more people, more children are dying in conflict today than were dying 20 years ago. So what is the balance sheet of UNICEF?
Thank you for the question. It's very important to put things in a separate way. It's difficult to say that UNICEF is doing something about conflict, armed situations. Of course, UNICEF cannot act on the field. What UNICEF is showing to the world that this situation, this problem, is really provoking more damages in children. And that's the main point, to say, watch out world, here is UNICEF saying, this is what's happening in the field with children in armed conflicts. And I think that's very important, that somebody has that voice in order to call the attention of the international community. And when you were talking about the education, yes, of course, money is part of everything, especially in less developing countries and landlocked countries, least developing countries. And you know well that this is one of the Millennium Goals to eradicate poverty. So what UNICEF is doing in the advocacy is to encourage governments in order to really pay more serious attention when they do the budgeting issues, or the budgeting for social issues, mostly health and education. And I think that the results in most of the countries are giving improved experiences in order to contemplate and reach this objective in order to have education for children.
Let's go back for a minute to the idea of labor, child labor, particularly bonded labor. It's a major problem. It's a major problem because in developing countries, people are so poor that they cannot survive if all the members of the family, including the children, do not go out and produce some money. And so it is a question of double jeopardy, that on the one side, if you don't put your children to work, you're going to starve in your family. And on the other side, if you do put your children to work, then you have all these universities talking to you and saying, but you are preventing children from being educated. This is double jeopardy. How do you choose between the two? Between starvation on the one side and education on the other. Which is more important according to you? If you were the president of Bolivia, what would you do?
Well, I will do what Mr. Morales is doing now. He's allocating more money in health and education, definitely. It's trying to give the opportunity to every child in Bolivia in order to reach education, at least in the primary level. And then to support programs in order to accompany those with health protection as well. So what do you think is, what is important for you students in order to consider this issue? Is how education could be put as a priority in governments, taking into account what Ambassador Jamal said, that if poverty is one of the main tragedies in the present times, especially in poor countries, in very, very poor countries, and the experiences are vast in that way. How can we work in order that people that are responsible for the leadership of their countries could pay more attention and give extreme priority in order to provide education and protection to children? That's the task that everybody is asking themselves.
Yes, but the point that I'm making, Ambassador Loayza-Barea, is that it is improper to focus only on the rights of the child. That you have to see the rights of the child in a global context. And the context is one of poverty, of underdevelopment, of being subjected to the greatest violation of human rights, which is poverty, which is not denying the rights of the child. That is a lesser violation of human rights than the violation of human rights, which is poverty. If you are poor and if you are starving, it makes no difference at all whether you have the right to education or not, or the right to free speech or not. How do we get over this problem that we are constantly being pushed, particularly by the developed countries, on rights of women, rights of child, rights of free speech, etc., etc. But nobody is talking about the right to get out of abject poverty. Just the Millennium Development Goals is a wish list. That's all that it is. Because the most important part of the Millennium Development Goals was Millennium Development Goal number 8, which said produce the money for all this. And nobody is talking about money. And everybody is talking about cutting poverty in half. How are you going to do it? Back to you.
Yeah, I have the same question, Ambassador. I mean, I have the same doubts. How we're going to do it? More money? Who's going to give the money? Who's going to get the money? Rich countries. But we have to change governance, perhaps.
Governance of the rich countries.
Perhaps. Perhaps we have to consider to cut budgeting in arms situations. I mean, this proliferation of nuclear weapons, for instance, those funds that are allocated to spend huge amount of money in order to increase the arms of mass destruction. So I think the point is that if we can have part of that money in order to allocate, to contribute to developing countries to the right of development, I think it will be a part of a path that could change this situation. You can realize in the last 50 years what happened? Nothing. The achievements are very few. I mean, the efforts were made in the national capacity by each country, in the possibilities that they could make. Some made some progress, others not, and the levels of poverty are still the same. So I think international cooperation should be more